Good afternoon and welcome to the Asian Midday Market Watch. Our guest today is Kelvin Wong, market strategist at CMC Markets. Kelvin, thanks for coming in.
Hey, hi, Brian. Good to see you again.
Now, Kelvin, before we start, let's take a look at how regional markets are performing. We're going to start with crypto markets. Now, crypto markets rallied overnight, topping 55,000 US dollars and hitting its highest level since mid-May. Now, regulatory fears have eased this week after both Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and SEC Chair Gary Gensler said that they have no plans to impose restrictions on cryptocurrency trading. Now, to take a look at what prices are at right now, we can see that Bitcoin is at 55,145.9. It's up 7.43%. Ethereum is at 3,548.58. It's up 2.15%. Looking across regional markets, mainland China markets remain closed today for the holidays. The SGX is at 3,112.3. It's up 0.92%. Bursa Malaysia is at 1,559.95. It's up marginally 0.03%. The Nikkei is in green territory. It's 27,711.92. It's up 0.66%. The Hang Seng is at 24,543. It's up a whopping 2.41%. The ASX 200 is at 7,259.50. It's up 0.74%. Rounding up the numbers, we've got a nice number from the Kospi. It's up 1.61% at 2,955.03. Kelvin, what's your take on markets today?
Yeah, so I believe that what we are seeing now is a kind of a positive follow-through via the positive showing of the US stock market last night. So what's interesting on the US stock market is very earlier on at the start of the session, right, the S&P 500 actually dropped close to intraday loss of 1.5%. And during the midday, they actually did a kind of a significant bullish reversal, which actually reversed all, or I would say erased almost, in fact, erased all its intraday losses and ended positive at 0.41%. So one of the reasons why I believe the drivers that actually causes this upside on the US stock market is actually due to this US debt ceiling extension. So there was a kind of a breakthrough or a negotiation breakthrough between the Republicans in the Senate and the Democrats to actually agree on at least to actually increase the debt ceiling till December. So it's more like kicking the can down the road. Okay, but at
That's
least it's
right,
kind
because
of
it's
a
only a short
yeah,
term. It's a
yes.
short-term extension which Senator McConnell offered to Biden.
Yes, so it's a short-term relief situation where right now I believe that the horse trading will still takes on because right now don't forget, on top of this debt ceiling that the Congress got to actually negotiate on, and we also have this 3.5 trillion of additional fiscal stimulus that is being proposed by President Biden that is still in the limbo. Because right now, number one, why limbo? Because firstly, the Senate still feels the Republicans are kind of against it because they believe that it's actually have a damage to the current steep or budget deficit that the US is facing. So they're actually in favor of a lesser stimulus package. And but within the Democratic camp itself, there are also different factions on how the spending priorities between the progressive Democrats and the central Democrats. So there's still a lot of what I call negotiation or horse trading that's going on.
Okay, now I want to take us to closer to home and to basically the Evergrande crisis. Now, Chinese
Yes.
Estates, which was formerly a major shareholder of China Evergrande, has gone up 30% after it announced that it had received an offer to be taken private. What's your view on how this whole thing is evolving right now?
Okay, because from what I see right now is very clearly is number one, the China state planners, they actually made it clear over here is that they do not want to have a disorderly unwinding of this situation at Evergrande. That means they cannot allow it to actually collapse where it will create a kind of a contingent effect within the Chinese property sector, which will spill over to the main industry. Like for example, you start to see people who bought houses were not able to get their houses, and most importantly, people that bought real wealth management products that is being offered by this Evergrande Wealth Management Unit, which is a subsidiary of Evergrande, who actually uses the fund from this wealth management product to actually fund their property development operations. So they do not want to see a total wipe out for the retailers and the home buyers. So that's their pretty much concern. So the first thing is to tackle this group of people first, to get whatever thing that they want. I mean, at least to control it. So what we could see over here right now is the Chinese central government, state planners, they are kind of giving a kind of implicit bailout to Evergrande by asking various state-owned enterprises to actually buy certain asset for Evergrande to actually offer a lifeline or a kind of a restructuring process, you see. So eventually, I believe that Evergrande will be restructured, I mean, taken privately, and certain asset will be being absorbed or the debt being absorbed by various state-owned firms. But now the biggest problem now is come to the bondholders, the offshore bondholders. So I believe that the offshore bondholders might bite the bullet, because at the end of the day, right, what the central government want for the Chinese state plan one is that I do not want to create a moral hazard to the rest of the property developers in China, that hey, I could still carry on taking this kind of risk-taking behavior by taking on a substantial amount of leverage to fund my property development. At the end of the day, there will be a state-owned enterprise or the even the Chinese government to actually back me up, to back me up once my business operation turn bad. So they do not want to create another Evergrande situation again in the Chinese property sector. But also on the end, they also want to contain the fallout in this Evergrande debt crisis. So they will not create a kind of a social unrest situation in China as well.
Yeah, so
So it's a
at the end of the day, they are protecting themselves and their own population, but the foreign bondholders, good luck to you then.
Yeah, so it's a delicate balancing act right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Kelvin, on the other end of the spectrum, are we seeing a looming energy crisis right now? Because we've got oil prices which have surged, gas prices obviously which have surged, and obviously that is also fueling inflation fears around the world. What are your takes on this?
Yes, I believe that number one, there are certain factors at play that causing this we call it a steep rise in energy prices, be it net gas, and we spill over to WTI crude and Brent crude oil. So number one over here is the push of this green energy evolution by major developing nations, US, Europe, and now even Asia itself is trying to embrace this. But this big push itself is causes this lack of infrastructure that support this green energy revolution or evolution, we call it. So because of this lack of we call it clean energy infrastructure investment, it causes the spike of, let's say, net gas, because there's not enough infrastructure to actually support net gas production worldwide,
Yeah.
which eventually, because of this climate change thing, major development nations from Europe, not even China, they actually want to reduce the usage of fossil fuel, which is actually
Correct.
bad for the climate. But on the other hand, it create a spiral effect back into oil prices, because eventually all of them are substitute, you see. So you see
Yeah,
net gas
correct.
prices going up, so people will start to shift to WTI crude oil prices. And don't forget, on top of that, right, OPEC itself do not want to increase substantially the supply of we call it oil supply to the
Yes.
global economy. So I believe that they're actually using, it's actually a kind of a political game they're actually playing among the stakeholders. So I believe that what OPEC is doing right now is that now is the opportunity to actually make as much as possible before the whole world transit into green energy. So that's why I believe that oil prices will still be sticky at this moment in time. So we talk about
Okay.
WTI crude oil prices. We talk about in the medium term. We talk about 3 to 6 months time frame.
Correct.
It could be easily going up to about 85 to 90 per barrel.
Wow. So you're really bullish on oil then?
Because if you look at the situation right now, right, number one, the external environment actually supports it, and so it leads to a kind of speculative play as well. So there's also a speculative element that is actually driving this oil prices much higher.
Now, Kelvin, as always, thank you very much for your insights and for coming on the show.
Thank you, Brian, as
Now,
usual.
we've been speaking to Kelvin Wong, market strategist at CMC Markets on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video and podcast will be on our various social media platforms as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.